500 photos later with the POCO X8 Pro Max, and I think I've finally figured out exactly what this camera system is trying to do. I think the cameras of the POCO X8 Pro Max are great for photos, but bad for videos. And if you love that very contrasty look, you'll probably love this phone for photos. This isn't the best camera in the category, mind you, but it will get you by if you only need a decent camera. And that pretty much sums up the experience. Of course, there's a lot more to it than that, because after taking over 500 photos and a lot of video clips across different lighting conditions, I started noticing patterns. Things that POCO does really well and things that clearly need improvement. So in this video, we're going to focus purely on the camera. Photos, videos, main camera, ultra-wide, selfie, everything. But before we get into it, my name is Lorenzo, welcome to the channel, get sub for interesting tech, and if you like the product after this video, I have it linked below. Now let's start with the overall look and style of the photos. If you've used POCO phones before, this will feel very familiar, because the POCO X8 Pro Max follows that same signature style. A lot of contrast, dark shadows, and most of the saturation or color you see in the image actually comes from that strong contrast. It's not necessarily boosting colors aggressively, instead it deepens the shadows and increases separation between light and dark areas. And the result is a more dramatic looking image. This kind of look works really well in certain situations, especially if you're shooting cityscapes, architecture, or anything with strong lighting contrast. It gives your photos that punch and depth. But there is a trade-off, because once you bake in that much contrast into an image, you lose flexibility. There's less room for editing, you can't easily recover shadow details, and sometimes photos tend to look darker than what you would typically see from other phones. So it really comes down to preference. If you like dramatic, contrasty photos, you'll probably enjoy this. If you prefer brighter, more balanced images, this might not be your style. Now let's talk about the main camera, because this is where most of your photos will come from. And honestly, this is where the POCO X8 Pro Max performs very well. At this point, I think POCO has reached a passing mark about 95% of the time when it comes to preserving details, maintaining sharpness, and minimizing noise, even when shooting indoors, and that's actually important, because traditionally, non-flagship Android phones struggle with indoor shots. You usually get noise, you get soft details, and you get inconsistent processing. But here, the main camera does a good job of staying consistent. The focal length is around 26mm, which is your standard wide field of view, so it's versatile. Now when you zoom into 2x, which is roughly 52mm, things get even more interesting, because the quality still holds up pretty well. You still get detailed shots and sharp images, and it gives you just enough reach to isolate your subject. Personally, I still prefer having a dedicated telephoto lens, but for a digital zoom, 2x here is actually very usable. And this is where I had the most fun. Macro. For some reason, this phone is really good at macro shots. The detail you can get when shooting close subjects is honestly impressive, to the point where I found myself actively looking for subjects just to test it out. Anything beyond 2x like 5x or around 130mm is where things start to fall apart. You'll start seeing jagged lines and detail deterioration. Dynamic range on this phone is actually very good, especially in auto mode. The camera does a solid job balancing highlights and shadows, but if you're shooting scenes with darker backgrounds, you might want to lower the exposure, because sometimes the phone brightens the image too much. There was one time where HDR looked extremely processed, but that only happened once. Overall, HDR is reliable. Portrait mode here is decent, but it clearly favors people over objects. Most of the time, you only get strong background blur when shooting people. Cutouts are around 90% accurate, which is good, but not perfect. Now, night shots look clean, noise is well controlled, but shadow detail is limited, so darker areas can look crushed. Still, for the price, it performs well, and that's usually expected when it comes to night shooting. The ultra-wide camera uses an 8-megapixel sensor, and while that doesn't sound impressive, it performs better than expected. Processing plays a big role here though. The phone manages to preserve decent detail and colors, and honestly, this is one of the cleanest looking 8-megapixel ultra-wide cameras at this level. The selfie camera works great when properly exposed. If you're facing the light, results are good. You get a 1x view at around 26mm and a 0.8x view at 21mm. The wider view is useful for group shots, but the only downside is indoor performance. Quality drops quickly when lighting is not ideal. Now let's talk about the video, because this is the weakest part of the camera system. The biggest issue is the overall look. The colors feel lifeless, flat, sometimes even dull to a point, and that detail doesn't look as sharp as you would expect. It also gets worse in 4K 60, so why recommend sticking to 4K 30? Another issue is skin tone. It tends to shift towards a greenish or yellowish look, and it doesn't look natural. Stabilization is good though, but it doesn't fix the overall quality issues. If you know how to shoot in log and color grade, you can improve the results. But for most users, the video camera is just not good. After taking more than 500 photos, here's the conclusion. For photos, this is a good camera. It gets strong detail, good dynamic range, and great 2x zoom performance. Macro is also surprisingly enjoyable. But for video, it falls behind. The quality is inconsistent, colors are not appealing, and overall, it needs a major improvement. If you care about photos, this phone is good enough. But if you care about videos, this might not be the one. If you want to check it out, give it a try, the links are below. But that's it for this one. Drop a sub or like if you feel like supporting the channel. As always, until the next one, stay safe.